Welcome everyone to today's K&E Speaks, where we have conversations towards a more knowledgeable world. I'm Isaac Tabor, Head of Digital Learning here at Knowledge E. In today's talk, we have our CEO, Kamran Kardan, as well as two distinguished guests with us to discuss transdisciplinary research, how transdisciplinary research can contribute to solving complex societal issues, the opportunities for societal impact, and its current use in higher education institutions will all be discussed in today's episode. Before we start, it would be great for our viewers if we could do a round of introductions, if you don't mind. So maybe we'll start with you, Kamran.
Oh, sure. Thanks very much, Isaac. Always excited to take part in the K&E Speak series. My name is Kamran Kardan. I'm the founder and CEO of Knowledge E, a company with a mission to move towards a more knowledgeable world. And this particular topic is close to my heart because definitely I feel that by having a transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach, we can really have a better shot at solving some of our global challenges and really being able to make big impact. So yeah, looking forward to learning new things from my peers and to the conversation.
Thank you. Tobias, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, Isaac, Kamran. Great pleasure to be here. I'm Tobias Buser. I'm currently, and since 5 years, the Executive Secretary of the Global Alliance for Inter and Transdisciplinarity. And I've since a longer time and will be even more in future focusing on capacity building for these collaborative forms of doing research towards addressing and helping to solve society challenges. I'm doing capacity building kind of on different levels. One is directly in courses, training both from students, junior to senior researchers, but as well research programs that doing transdisciplinarity and consulting them, but then as well going towards training those who then should teach and train others, like faculty members, trainers, so train the trainer question, and as well working together with funding agencies to bring that knowledge on transdisciplinary processes and the needs of these forms of research towards those who are funding inter and transdisciplinary programs.
Thank you. Thank you. Anika, I think we've got you to go still.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Anika. I am the director of AESIS, which stands for Advancing and Evaluating Societal Impact of Science. With science, we mean all sciences, social sciences, humanities, arts, everything included. And what we do is we try to catalyze and support the developments that are already thankfully happening towards strengthening societal impact and everything around it, whether that's policy, strategy, infrastructures, skills, facilities, tools. And we mostly do that by organizing conferences, providing workshops, courses, and we maintain a large network globally that provides knowledge exchange through newsletters and an online platform. And to me, when you talk about societal impact, we talk about challenges in the world, societal challenges that are almost always multidimensional, and therefore you need a multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral, multi-international approach. And so this is very close to my heart as well. And I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation about this today.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, thanks for the introductions. And indeed, I too am looking forward to a conversation on societal impact, which of course is a very important topic and something that we all want to move towards. So with that in mind, a first question just to open it up, it's quite a general one, but let's begin with the term transdisciplinary. I think a lot more people are familiar with the term interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary is still a little bit foreign to some people. How was it first used, and how do you think the meaning of the term has developed or changed over time, particularly in research?
Well, I could start probably,
Sure.
and then the others can chime in. Well, transdisciplinarity had always this aim of going beyond what was to be able to be done within a discipline, or even several disciplines that just work aside of each other's. It came up first in the early 70s, along with the OECD conference. Jansch is one of the authors, but also other ones. There it was strongly about a holistic approach to knowledge production. It has then slightly changed towards really addressing these pressing societal challenges and also contributing towards solving problems together with different disciplines, but also together with different societal actors. So bringing in different actors that have the power to act, that can build something, that can do something, but also those who are affected, has become an important part of it. And so within it has become an important mode of doing research in the field of sustainability research, not only, but there it's fairly strong, and also with this strong component of producing knowledge that is helping to solve problems. So that means not only producing knowledge about something, about how a system works, but also producing knowledge about where do we want to go as a society with in a specific field, and then the knowledge as well on what steps can we take, what strategy do we need to go towards where we want to be. So, and there it's also clear too that we have in both of these realms to involve and engage different actors, because defining where we want to go is a whole societal question and decision process, and how to do it to go there, we need those who can decide and do and go steps. So that's basically, now it's very much growing, and there are still different notions of transdisciplinarity. But the one within sustainability science has gained a lot of traction, as it's also seen as a very helpful approach to address the complex problems.
It's really interesting. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kamran.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, taking a look in history, what we've had since the term was coined in the 70s, and where we're going, the direction today. I think in the early approaches towards science, I think we used to have a multidisciplinary approach. Like in those days, sciences were not as defined as they used to be over the past decades. And we then gradually moved into more specialization in various areas. And yeah, as Tobias mentioned, the term was coined in the 70s. I've read some excerpts from Piaget as well, where it was talking about having that integrated approach to the various disciplines. I think what has facilitated and actually accelerated the knowledge and the awareness towards this approach, of course, the rise of the SDGs and the importance of having a sustainable approach to the world that we live in, and having integrated ways to solve the global challenges. I think the SDGs has brought all of us, has created that awareness around a range of complex issues and challenges that we face around the world. And universities and higher education institutions, as an agent of change and societal impact, play a major role in this direction. I think universities have taken sustainability close to the heart. We've seen a drive towards moving towards the Sustainable Development Goals, followed by even various bodies trying to rank the universities into this topic to a certain extent. And even recently, with the rise of issues like COVID, global warming, there is really that understanding that you can't have a single disciplinary approach to solve global challenges. And recently we've seen even, again, the ranking bodies seeing the importance of the topic in today's higher education ecosystem, and even forming measures around how that is being rolled out in various institutions. So I think there's definitely a past approach since the term has been like formalized and really specialized, and the approach where it's becoming more and more close to higher education systems, and people are understanding the importance of this approach.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's interesting that you said it came up out of a conference in the 1970s, which was, of course, a time of increased environmental advocacy. So I wonder if it was born out of that, if they already sort of would have been able to foresee the impact it would have on sustainability research and just increase sustainability research, or whether it was just a fortunate, outcome. But in any case, coming back to what you were saying, Cameron, around the importance of transdisciplinary research, I know that students and even scholars still struggle to understand the difference between trans, inter, and multidisciplinary research. We have cross-disciplinary research. There's quite a lot of terms out there. How do you make the distinction between each of those? But more importantly, which of the different types of disciplinarity are most in line with how collaborative research is currently and most commonly conducted? Which is the most popular, and is it possibly changing? And is it changing for good reason as well between all these different modes?
I think I absolutely see that as well. To start with, the term transdisciplinarity and all the others are being used quite differently in many contexts. I thought just for fun to Google the term just before, and I have to say that the Wikipedia page, which I know is not a great source, but it's very much behind when it comes to what we're talking about now. And the fact that transdisciplinary has developed its meaning over the years actually will explain why people are not yet on the same terms about what it actually means everywhere. I've often actually heard it being used as still within academia, but the most, as if it's the degree of involvement of disciplines together in which transdisciplinary is the most advanced, sort of, it's almost one. So it's being used very differently, and I think, and I hope that conversations like this help people get aligned, which is, difficult, because we're talking about a term that encompasses the whole science ecosystem and outside. So you have so many different people who see this term differently. So hopefully we can align that. I didn't know about the 70s, by the way. I thought that was a great point you made about that as well, Isaac. I'm sure it was actually going at the idea of this is a problem that we have to solve together. So I'm very excited about that. I forgot the second part of the question, so I'm just gonna pass it.
Yeah,
to someone else.
Sure. Yeah, maybe Tobias, you have some thoughts around that. The second part of the question was basic, just of all these different types of disciplinarity, which ones do you see being the most commonly used in collaborative research today, whether it's at higher education institutions, research centers, government, private sector, wherever it is? Which is the most popular, and is that possibly changing now that more of us are having these kind of conversations and there's more initiatives to sort of draw attention to the benefits of transdisciplinary research?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely see it that way. Transdisciplinarity definitely gained traction since the early 2000s, and especially in the last 2 years. Before, it was something very exotic to most, and now transdisciplinarity is also worked in many research founders' calls for programs. You see it a lot more often coming up, and it's kind of tends to stand for really this collaborative way of working, both within academy and with different societal actors. But I say there are different notions out there. For me, I always work with a thing that distinction that I think is easy to handle. Well, it doesn't connect with all the theories. It connects with many people that I'm speaking with, and it's kind of easy to handle. So disciplinary research would be within one discipline with the specific methods of this discipline. multidisciplinarity is when many disciplines are involved, but all still working with their own methods and probably have a synthesis somewhere, or you publish a book together, but there's not that much connection between the disciplines. Then interdisciplinarity is working all the disciplines, but still within the universities, the academic system together, and also working on joint concepts and methods and integrate the different kinds of knowledges that are produced, so a more closely interlinked, intertwined way of producing knowledge within academy. And then transdisciplinarity would bring in the societal actor, be it representatives of organizations, administration, interest groups, businesses, or also members of the communities. So that's one distinction that makes it kind of easy to distinct. I know there is also this notion of transdisciplinarity still within the academic system. It's somehow a bit fading, this notion. And it is also because it's difficult to make this distinction between inter and transdisciplinarity then, because it's very, you can't tell clearly that's now trans. When are you kind of integrating a lot and when are you transgressing? It's not that easy to tell, but it's fairly easy to say you're working with the different actors that are relevant to this specific topic. You're working with societal actors as well and have this as transdisciplinarity. And that's been seen as very helpful by most actors I've talked with. And it's widely used now as well.
Right.
But not exclusively.
I see, yeah. It's interesting. And it also leads me very nicely into the next question that I have on this list here. I imagine for some, perhaps administrators at higher education institutions, if they heard the last few minutes of what you were talking about, it could sound a little bit overwhelming and sound to the point of how do I even get involved in this? We know that there are, of course, still higher education institutions that don't engage in transdisciplinary research, but are actively engaged in research nonetheless and have impressive research outputs. They may be ranking well as well in terms of research output. It begs the question for some of them. They might say, why should we put our efforts towards getting involved in these kind of things? It sounds very overwhelming. Where do we even start? Do we even want to, budget or distribute our resources for something? And I suppose this is a question for the whole group. What would you say to those institutions? I mean, what is the big why in terms of getting involved in transdisciplinary research?
Well, I think there's multiple reasons, and maybe we could split it up. On the one hand, the question is, why would anyone want to be involved in transdisciplinarity with purpose, in this case of challenge, a societal impact of science? I think a lot of people actually intrinsically would like to help. There's the one hand. There's also the idea of that we need to incentivize them. Of course, that's overwhelming because they're still being rewarded to publish and not to engage with society. It seems scary. Some of them have never had the skills, whether it's the research administrators or the researchers themselves might not have learned these skills. They don't have the time, they don't have the funding for it. And as long as this is being seen as an add-on instead of an integrated part, it'll be something that there might not be space for that. Having said that, I do agree also that not every type of research or department or discipline requires as much transdisciplinarity or engagement with society as others. Of course, there's still blue sky research and there's there's curiosity driven. So that would be my first thought. So on the one hand, they probably want to, but we need to make the space and give them the skills and change the culture in order to do that.
I imagine it's quite a long process as well. It's something that we should be thinking about in terms of the long term rather than the short term. I mean, we see a lot of trends in higher education where universities and providers want to sort of jump on the bandwagon something in the short term, but I see this as really more of a long-term thing. Anika, going by what you were saying, I know your work at AESIS centers around the impact of science on society. You've talked a little bit already about transdisciplinarity for advancing societal impact of science, but I wonder if you could say something about how you would evaluate that societal impact. So if you have transdisciplinary research projects, are they evaluated in terms of the amount of societal impact? Are they evaluated in other ways? Or how does AESIS sort of go around this?
Oh, that's a very difficult question in the sense that there are a lot of things happening around what kind of metrics to use, responsible evaluation, and there's a lot of different approaches to this. Let's start with transdisciplinarity. Does it make evaluation easier? It's important for advancing impact, but evaluating impact is very difficult. And I would actually argue that there is no way to evaluate the eventual impact because it's long-term, it's indirect. You're never gonna, you might be able to assess output or engagement activities. And that is what you see happening a lot. And, you know, with the assumption that engagement activities, as well as immediate output will at least increase the chance of a positive impact in the long term. What I find quite an interesting, but it's not happening that much yet, when you're working with society or societal actors, I've seen projects where actually the evaluation framework itself was also created with the societal actors, having them also think about what would actually be the preferred outcome and what would be the thing that we need to have assessed, instead of the research, the people in the academic world deciding, you know, this is what's good for you. And I think that's a really important part of what we're talking about when we talk about engagement or transdisciplinarity, is it's not for necessarily for them, it's also very important for people within academia to do this because they can learn as well, whether that's about the research itself, the eventual impact, or how you evaluate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it touches on sort of cultural considerations, cultural relevance, and sensitivities as well, and about sort of community empowerment. And the why of transdisciplinary research is actually the why of research in general in this case, which is to have positive effects on impact on people's lives. So I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, one point that I wanted to add is following what Anika mentioned on really the difficulty to measure impact. And when we talk about, I think, for example, let's look at the new, for example, when we talk about impact rankings, when we talk about interdisciplinary rankings, it's not just simply the act of publishing in an area that would, for example, consider impact. But I think, you know, putting metrics and measurement factors, I think at least one benefit is to instill the thought process. And I think the importance of having, for example, a specific approach. For example, if a university is completely closed to a transdisciplinary approach versus being open, enabling collaboration, enabling the creation of unified and integrated frameworks to conduct research in solving societal problems. For universities to actually go back to their raison d'etre and their reason for being, which the majority, you can't actually go through a university website and see their purpose, their mission, and at least find, you know, 1, 2, 3 items of impact. Most of the universities were created, and their reason for existence is to have that impact. So even though it's difficult to measure, I think having it under your radar, at least as one of the elements that you look into, you try to evaluate, you assess, you facilitate, you study, you collaborate, I think that act itself can have an impact even if it's not measured. But I definitely agree that some of the projects, the impact measures need to be defined with those projects itself. And it's something that's still a struggle across many different areas. Is, you know, how do you measure, especially when the value, you know, the impact is intrinsic.
I could probably add as well two or three thoughts there. One is really as transdisciplinarity to unfold in a successful way needs to be co-defining, co-creating as well what the project is about or program is about together with different actors that have an impact there. It's also important to have their perspectives in the evaluation as one of the perspectives. And I also agree, impact evaluation is extremely difficult, and there are always in complex system many different things that flow into what happens. But still, we had examples of projects with follow-up interviews, for example, with the involved stakeholders and researchers looking into what happened afterwards. And there were things that happened. And as always, it's not the project is not the only reason why it's happened. So that's an important part. And one thing I just thought that I wanted to bring in earlier, why universities would or should take up transdisciplinarity. It's really, well, what Kamran also said on their purpose. They usually have that they want to be of help for society. So, and then to address complex situation, transdisciplinarity is a good and tested approach, but it also needs a lot of capacity building within the institutions and bring together highly ranked universities and those also pioneers in capacity building for transdisciplinarity research. For example, the ETH Zurich, which is at high levels at rankings, basically any of the rankings. They are as well one of the pioneers of bringing in transdisciplinarity already from fairly bachelor level and then up to all degrees on some studies. So it comes together very nicely. It's not exclusive to make exquisite research and work transdisciplinary. And the third thing probably as well, those who went through these careers were absorbed into both university and other labor market in no time. So it's something, the skills you gain when getting trained in transdisciplinarity are so important that you're seeked kind of everywhere.
I wanted to say, in addition to the discussion about evaluation, and Tobias just mentioned rankings, which, as we all know, are not always necessarily viewed positively, so I'll be careful with what I'm saying, but the general view of demonstrating societal impact and the activities that went beforehand is important on its own, even without any particular whether there's funding attached or whether it's ranking or whatever. In some of the first ref exercises, it wasn't the usual top universities who scored well on the societal impact activities. It was others who then actually got the acknowledgement of something that they're strong at or good at or doing. And the same is on the institutional level. If you manage to demonstrate good practices of research projects that have engaged with society and have fantastic societal impact, not only do you acknowledge these people who have, even though it's a lot of work and can be very difficult, have managed to work transdisciplinary, but you also encourage others with examples. It isn't scary. It isn't impossible. See, here's the example. So in that sense, demonstrating the activities and the outcome of that is just, it's not easy, but very important and should be taken time for. on top of what I think Kamran said earlier, actually knowing where you're going helps you, create the pathway and think of the pathways. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, I mean, it's true that we're seeing it in the ranking bodies. Times Higher Education has the impact ranking. There's the sustainability rankings. Another question that I wanted to ask, which I'm really curious about, do you think transdisciplinary research has been sufficiently embraced by governing bodies to equip researchers with the needed tools and resources to conduct large-scale transdisciplinary research projects? I mean, we have the rankings there, we have the acknowledgement. Are the researchers and the stakeholders actually supported enough to be able to make it happen?
Can start there, and I would say definitively not yet. There are some good steps made. For example, funding bodies are starting to fund some specific transdisciplinary tasks, like a person, you could call them integration expert, needs to be funded to really design, carry on, facilitate, reflect the collaboration processes. But especially on the capacity building level, while some universities really pioneered there, it's not widely distributed that you can find education on transdisciplinary research. So far too few students, far too few PhDs, far too few lecturers and faculty do have a real good understanding on what transdisciplinary processes need to be built up and what it needs to be carried on. So there is still a lot of work to do. So capacity building on all the different levels, from students to faculty to also the university leaders and administration, to build this understanding. Also, when transdisciplinary is applicable, it doesn't replace the other modes of research. It's just for complex problems where it's really making sense, and you should go that way, to how is it done, and how do I participate best, how do I lead best, and how do I teach best the transdisciplinary ways, and how do I evaluate best.
I also agree with Tobias over here that there's so much work that can be done. And it's not just, I think what you mentioned at the beginning, Anika, around sciences and the involvement of all sciences, humanities, social sciences, when it comes to various issues that require change and impact. Definitely a lot of work needs to be done to have that closer collaboration and that closer interdisciplinary approach. I think going back to what we discussed earlier, the mission of a university, the direction that they want to go, would really will set the example, or that beacon where they would want to go. And there is, of course, a big need for building the capacity, training, and raising awareness, educating all the various stakeholders. But I want to take this a step, 2 steps back as well. Actually, within governments, I think there needs to be a lot of work on the education systems themselves. This is not something that all of a sudden, this kind of mindset that is instilled at higher education. This needs to start at schools. This needs to start at really at the K-12 level. And I think many, well, not many, I think 21st century skills that was coined by Sir Ken, that's really shedding light in that direction about the importance of these skills. Some mentioned the 4 C's, the communication, the curiosity, the creativity, and all these various skills that are needed to have that transdisciplinary approach. There's research that's conducted that actually, having a cohesive reason for learning a various topic helps with the memorization. So just a single focus on a specific topic might not be memorized that well, as Grunberg in his book, Theoretical Aspects of Memory, has really alluded to this, that really memory and context, context-based memory really facilitates and assists with the learning. So the point that I would like to make is, yes, higher education systems, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Capacity building is needed, training is needed, but definitely from a government perspective, we really need to go back at the education system and really instill this sort of approach in the learning of the children to really try to solve problems. There's no longer what you want to be in the future. I want to be like a doctor or an engineer. It's like really what kind of problems I would like to solve in the future. It's really instilling this mindset in the future generations and the kids that would really facilitate that once we reach the higher education, this mindset, this holistic approach, this integrated approach is already instilled, and we come. And it's not just about the sciences, it's about how we conduct the research. It's about working with different teams from different specialities, working within, for example, a tight timeline or very limited budget to solve a complex problem. So it's all these different areas that come from, some people call it soft skills. I actually like the meta skills. Someone used it in a conference, that these are really skills that, in addition to the research skills and the understanding of the various disciplines, really helps us in moving in that direction.
I think that's incredible. If I may, sorry. I mean, Kamran, you never lack in ambition, to be honest, because we are already talking about transforming the science ecosystem. He's like, let's transform the whole education system, the whole world. It's, sure, as if the first one wasn't difficult enough, but I very much agree, and I think it's a very good point. Maybe to then add the layer of another thing that's needed is the institutional structures. Universities are ancient sets, structures that are very difficult to change, very set in their ways, in models that are just very static. Thankfully, there is change happening, but on two fronts, there is so much more needed. It is incredible, first of all, that a lot of researchers are still only getting promotions or hired based on things like H-index and stuff like that. As long as the promotion and tenure rewards recognition system is not including the possibility of transdisciplinarity, public engagement, you name it, that's not going to change. You're either going to have researchers who are completely burned out because they want to get Horizon Europe funding that requires engagement activities, while you also want to get promoted, which requires you publish a lot, or they focus on either or the other, but you can't have both. So that's one thing. And one other thing, and taking a bit of a step back towards the interdisciplinary part, the way universities are set up, simply the funding stream siloed within certain departments often already, blocks a lot of opportunities for interdisciplinary work. There's a lot of discussion, like, I want this person with their team, but how are we going to do that funding wise, etc. Like, where are the monetary streams coming from? And sometimes people feel like I'm just doing voluntary work being added to this project, another way around it. As long as we stick to this idea of these very siloed disciplines, sometimes working together, we're never really going to bridge all that, instead of it being sort of, all-encompassing, all together, focused on the challenges, starting, apparently, as Kamran suggested, in the education system already, early on with the kids. And that should then cycle through to the university structure, institutional structure.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's an ambitious project going at the moment. I think it's called Schools of the Future, although I need to double check that. One of them is actually in Rotterdam, so probably not too far from you, Anika. But it's really it's really embracing this inter or possibly transdisciplinary approach. It's probably more interdisciplinary, to be honest. For school kids, they're open all open plan buildings. For secondary school students, it's very much project-based, inquiry-led. They're given a project at the start. The subject-specific teachers are there as facilitators, sort of roaming around the building. They can go and find them if they need to, but they're not restricted to learning about one subject during one class period. They go through their entire year that way. The entire year is basically building up towards presenting this project as a team, for which they've had to dip into all these different disciplines. And I think it's in its second year at the moment. There's one in Holland, there's one in Japan, there's one in Korea, there's one in South Africa. It's doing very well. It would be great to see more of those. But of course, like you were saying, Anika, when those kids graduate school and then have to go to university, it may be a little bit of a disappointing experience, or at least different to what they've just been doing. So a lot of work to be done there. Yeah. Okay, I think we can move into our last question for the day. It's the obligatory AI question. That's mean, but anyway, we can't ignore the rise of AI in research practices, and of course the increased role it's going to play in the not so distant future. It's here already. So a big question is, how can AI support transdisciplinary approaches across different areas? We talked about research a lot. We talked a little bit about educational design. There's a lot to be said there about where AI is going to and can infuse itself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll start because I'm probably the least AI expert. So I was already thinking into that question quite a lot, and there are areas, for example, pulling together some baseline knowledge from very different sources and kind of getting a bit muddled up, but still a nice overview over some things. There's a lot of help of work it can help with. And then another role I can see is with tools like ChatGPT, kind of getting like a AI perspective as well to the table, not taking it as the overruling or overarching perspective, but just taking it like chatting with it and getting one perspective of a kind of a personality you don't really know how it's made up, but it might come up with weird things and interesting things and stimulating reflection on it. And then probably I think it's most helpful in the realm of systems knowledge. I very much doubt we should use it too much in the terms of target knowledge, so the question of where we would like to go, because then we get a lot of the biases that are in all of the systems, and also the transformation knowledge, so the knowledge of how to do new steps, as it's basically working with all the knowledge it has or it has access to from the past. So having these steps that are outside of the system, it's probably difficult.
So I would like to say that I'm probably even less of an expert than Tobias, but I'll give it a try to add to what he said. I think one other thing could be its role in translation. When you talk about engaging with societal actors, they speak very different languages than academics, and vice versa, and also between them. I actually haven't used ChatGPT yet. I think I'm one of the only people in the world, but I have not. But I hear you could say, translate this to something that my grandma would explain. Translate this how a kid in high school could explain this. I think there are a lot of challenges and issues there still, and things to be careful about when we talk about AI in general, whether that's for the purposes of Tobias mentioned, or the translation thing. But I'll keep it positive. I think there's a lot of opportunities there to help out.
Well, I would just add, I'm not an AI expert, but definitely an enthusiast, and also someone who was involved in building products and services around the use of AI in higher education and research outlets. So if we look at the limitations or the barriers to having an interdisciplinary approach, I think the use of AI will remove some of those barriers. and for example, the understanding, as it was mentioned before, the jargon of various complex scientific conversations that are not in your field of expertise. It will also facilitate a fast learning and understanding of, again, topics from various other disciplines that are not your specialization. So that sort of quick summaries, the quicker literature review. And actually, sometimes when you find something relevant, it's also enabling you to ask the right questions around the specific topic. Questions where, if you're not an expert in that field, you will not be able to know what type of research questions to ask. So another aspect of AI is enabling researchers and facilitating researchers in that areas. And all of them I see fostering transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach. So I really think that AI will accelerate the closer collaboration and that sort of singular framework of working on complex issues. Now, if I want to take it one step higher and discuss at government level, so when we talk about policy making regarding some of the complex issues that are faced in a country, in a region, or for example, let's take EU as a whole, and understanding the evidence around a specific topic. So AI can really be used in data synthesis and bringing that vast amount of data in various areas related to a singular topic, and to be able to summarize it, to help with the visualization, bring it into reports. So as Tobias mentioned, having that not second opinion, but that other perspective. I was having a conversation with a chief scientist from one of the European countries, and we were discussing, is AI a seat at the table in that decision making, or is it bringing a perspective, or is it summarizing all the data that is available in a specific topic, synthesizing it, and, for example, coming up with recommendations based on the evidence? Is it fostering evidence-based decision making? So definitely the role for AI as we move forward with the advancement of technology and the speed that it's happened and the availability of the technology, really we will see the rise of specialized AI tools rather than ChatGPT approach. Like with OpenAI, there's many now customized areas where you actually can, for example, not just summarizing the vast amount of literature, but finding, for example, contradicting, comparing, confirming evidence within sort of any question. So the benefits are yet to be more and more discovered, but definitely on a transdisciplinary approach, AI plays an important role. And I think we're already seeing some of the benefits by the rise of specialized AI tools. We are also experimenting in this area by providing an AI tool, which is, first of all, facilitating the research process based on providing tools to conduct the research, but also bringing back questions and evidence back from the body of literature in a simplified way, enabling that understanding across disciplines. So a lot to still learn and a lot to discover in the area, but it's definitely fast moving and exciting times. And I'm personally excited to see the benefits that AI can bring to actually also in measuring the impact. I think in assessment, in measuring the impact, I think given that computational power and really linking not so obviously related items like from funding to that impact, there's other technology like blockchain technology that could probably also be used to really follow the money or the policy all the way to the impact that it has on society. So I would say it's definitely not yet fully utilized, but we'll be seeing more and more benefits that AI can bring to the table.
Okay, great. thank you all very much. I think that's a good place to leave it. There's a lot that can be done. There's a lot that's probably going to happen with AI. We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg so far. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to thank our guests for being here with us today. Anika, Tobias, Kamran, thank you very much for the conversation. I think we've covered a lot of ground, all the way from the beginning of the term transdisciplinary to where it's being used today, to how we can support researchers, to the work that still needs to be done to support, from governing bodies to institutions and researchers themselves, all the way through to K-12 schools and into AI. So I think we've covered a lot of ground. It's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for being here with us today. And to our viewers, thanks very much for joining. If you'd like to know more about transdisciplinary research, feel free to have a look at our Foundations of Inter and Transdisciplinary Research program, for which we worked with Tobias here to create a self-paced program. You can find it on knelearn.com, or you can reach out to us at hello@knelearn.com, and we're very happy to give you all the information about the program. Thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you at the next one.